Hi everyone. Hey there. Good afternoon. Hi Batista. Hi Grazi. Hi Anna. Cecilia's gonna be here soon. We're going to have 22 people already. It's fantastic. Hi Anna. Hi Ju, Batista says that my audio is a bit low. Is it better now? Can you hear me okay? Hello. Hi Faye. So Cecilia and I are going to be talking about speaking, teaching and speaking online. It's okay? Thanks, Josie. Cecilia is here. Let's see how long it's going to take her to get in.
Hello, Sergio.
Hey, Cecilia.
How are you
Hello.
today?
Fine. How are things?
Good, good. Here she is. How's everyone?
We have 35 people already.
Great,
It's
great.
excellent.
Yes, definitely, yeah. So I hope that I'm not disturbed by the call to prayer.
I think that's okay
Okay,
now.
yeah, we're going
Yes.
to talk about speaking online. And did you introduce the live, Sergio?
Yes, we're going to be talking about speaking online, teaching speaking online. And we got some questions, right? Cecilia asked people to contribute with questions. Got a lot of questions. And I've tried, I don't know if it worked, maybe someone can tell me, I've tried to add a question box so that people can send us
Yeah,
questions.
yes, it should be at the bottom of the screen. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if it worked. Maybe someone can tell me if you can see if you can try to send
Yeah.
us a question. This is the very first time I have tried to do that, so I don't know if I have managed, but okay. Hi, Hannah.
Okay, so let's get started. We had some questions.
Yes,
Do you want to start off, Sergio, with the first question we had?
sure. The first question we got is from Carol. Carol asks if speaking and conversation are the same thing.
That's a great question.
It
Yeah.
is. It's a great question. Yeah, I don't think that they're exact the same thing. I think you can have a speaking lesson. You can also have a conversation lesson. I think that the most important thing is to focus on what your aims and what your goals are. For instance, whenever I teach a speaking lesson and I have an aim, which is to help students to develop certain speaking skills or speaking sub skills, such as turn taking, hold the floor, agree
Mhm.
and disagree. I think that this kind of lesson is much more structured than a conversation lesson. I'm not saying that a conversation lesson is, whatever works. That's not the point. But the purpose of the speaking lesson is to help students become better at certain speaking skills. I don't know if you share the same opinion, Cecilia.
Yeah, I think they are slightly different. If we think about the conversation lesson, as you said, I think first in order to establish a conversation, we need at least two people interacting, right? So, can you hear me, Sergio?
Yes, yeah, you can hear you fine.
Yeah. So we need at least two people interacting And whereas when we're perhaps doing a speaking activity, we can have a monologue. Yeah, students can just produce a monologue. So I think by definition, they are not the same. Which doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, when you have a conversation lesson, it's like you said, anything goes, and it's not. And I think I also posted something about it, you know, how to have a more structured conversation lesson. It's not just let's talk about this and just leave it to the students. So I think there are, yeah, as you said, there are different goals. We have to set some objectives for each lesson and teach something to the students. Yeah, what are we going to teach? Skills? Are we going to, you know, do we want to teach some sort of lexes? So I think it's important to set the objectives very clearly.
Exactly. I think it's very easy to fall into the trap of having because a conversation lesson, right? I think that's the problem, because it's the term itself is too loose. So maybe when people think about conversation lessons, they may think that as long as people are talking, it's maybe conversation for the sake of conversation is just a conversation lesson. I don't think that's the best way to approach it. As you said, inevitably they're going to overlap, because there are certain aspects that are kind of intertwined in conversation lessons and speaking lessons. But I would say that even when you're planning a conversation lesson, you've said that you have this blog post, right, that teaches or shares how you can structure a conversation better, a conversation lesson in a proper way. But I would say that one of the main problems we can have, Cecilia, is when the conversation lesson becomes a reading lesson. So students spend most of the time, because language is the input is going to come from somewhere, right? And most of the time it comes from a text, be it a listening exercise or a reading exercise. But I would say that the main problem is when the conversation lessons becomes a reading lesson. And then students spend most of the time doing reading activities instead of speaking.
Reading comprehension, right?
Yeah, so I think it's important that when you are planning a conversation lesson, you try to strike a balance between, okay, the input must come from somewhere. Most of the time it's going to come from a text, but you shouldn't spend most of the time doing reading activities. Otherwise, your lesson will become a reading skills lesson in its own right.
Definitely, yeah. And I think one way to avoid this is to flip the lesson. So the teacher can assign the reading text or a video for the students to read in advance before the lesson itself. So they have the input already, and they would be ready to produce something. So I think it's a way of avoiding this, you know, this trap.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, something I've been doing with my advanced conversation lessons, this idea, the idea of flipping sounds wonderful. I think that there's something else we can do. You can find a text, a very interesting text, and then you can ask students questions using language from the text. But the questions are not comprehension questions, so it's not going to be a reading skills lesson. They're going to talk about the topic from the text, and then later on they can read the text. So they start by answering questions that are related to the text, not necessarily, again, just to stress that because it's very important. They're not comprehension questions, because if they were, then you are assuming that they would have to read the text beforehand. They're related to the text. And then it turns out that since they are talking about the text, in a way, it sort of motivates them to read the text later on. Because the questions then, they pick their curiosity.
Yeah. So are these questions more like opinion questions? They have to give their opinion on certain aspects of the text.
Yeah,
right.
And they speculate about the topic and they express their opinion. So it doesn't require them to read the text in advance, because they can still talk about the topic without having read the text.
Yeah, or even an image. We can use images like shocking images, controversial images, just to spark that curiosity and to start the conversation going. What do you think about using images? I love.
Absolutely, using images to as some sort of input, or maybe a short video, like a 1 or 2 minute video. Claudia is taking the Advanced Conversation courses. She says that it's, oh, thank you, Claudia. She said it's amazing, and I can say that as a student. Thanks, Claudia.
Great.
Yeah, but that's a great idea, Cecilia, to use images as a sort of input as well.
Yeah. Great. Let's go to the next question, which was, do you want to talk about shy students? We had a question about shy students. How can we, it was a question by Juliana, how can we motivate shy students to speak? No, when they fear speaking. Do you have the question there?
Yes, hold on a second. I have it here somewhere. Yes, so the question is shy students, how to keep them talking and not just giving short answers because they're afraid of making mistakes.
Yeah, okay. So I think that we talked about that before. I think we need to understand why they are afraid of making mistakes. What's the real source
Definitely.
of their fear? And are they also shy? I think something that we have to consider is, are they also shy in their L1, in their mother language? Because, or is this something that only happens when they are speaking the target language? So, yeah, do you want to? Yes, Sergio.
I totally agree with you. I think we should try to, let's say, diagnose if the problem is just related to English in this case, or maybe something that stems from the first language. And Cecilia, don't you think that because there are many variables, right? There are lots of things that play here. I think that something else she can do is to, before students start the speaking activity, to help them brainstorm ideas so that they can use those ideas as they talk to each other. Because as you said, maybe it's not just a question the language itself, but also because they don't know what to say.
They don't know. They don't have ideas. They might not have an opinion on the topic that you proposed. So they need some kind of input. And I think, I think brainstorming is really important. Preparation time. I've been talking about that in one of my posts as well. So give them time to prepare themselves, give them time to rehearse, to manipulate the language before they actually have to speak. And I think this time is very precious for such students, especially shy students and beginner students as well.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say that in a nutshell, to help them brainstorm ideas so that they can use it in speaking activity, and as you said, the language, right, that they're going to use to perform the test. Because she says here that they are afraid of making mistakes. So if they're afraid of making mistakes, I think that as teachers we should find ways to mitigate this fear. And one of the ways is, well, again, brainstorming ideas, providing them with prompts, right? So that they can have something to lean on. Some
prompts, and I don't know, do they know how to express their opinions, for example? Maybe you can provide them with prompts to express opinion or vocabulary. So I think perhaps for such students, we can spoon feed a little bit and give them the space and make them feel safe when they are in the classroom.
Certainly.
So there are also another thing that we need to consider is are you teaching one-to-one or are you teaching groups, right? Because there are different dynamics when teaching one-to-one in groups, and I think that teaching one-to-one is easier for shy students. because it's just you and the students. So you're there for them, and you can spend as much time as they need from you.
Yeah. And since we're talking about teaching and speaking online, I think that the fact that while they're doing the lesson, the fact that they're at home, it can be beneficial because they are in a safe environment. I mean, they're having classes from home, and they're not that as exposed as they might be when they are having classes, for example, face-to-face lessons with lots of people.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
The different atmosphere.
Yeah, and if you're teaching groups, perhaps, put them in breakout rooms with the other students, and again, let them prepare, rehearse, and perhaps if you want your students to present something, okay, or perhaps a role play or just a presentation, let that student, that shy student, be the last one to present. I think this would make people, I don't know, a bit more comfortable. What do you think, Sergio?
Yeah, I think it can help them build their confidence because, I mean, by listening to other students, they can feel hopefully they will feel more comfortable to speak when it's their turn.
Yeah, and they will see the others. They will see that the others also make mistakes, and it's okay. There's no problem in making mistakes. If you build this trust relationship, if you're helpful to your students, I think they will eventually feel comfortable, feel safe in the classroom.
Yes. So once again, right, as teachers, we need to be ready to scaffold and to help them as much as we can before the activity. But don't you think, Cecilia, that sometimes teachers are afraid of silence?
Yeah.
And to give students this time when they can plan what they're going to say and how they're going to say it, even if for a couple of minutes they're not going to be saying anything, they're going to be planning or maybe taking notes. I think it helps a lot. But we have this idea that it should give them instructions and then they should start right off the bat, like immediately.
Yeah, and it's I think this is this can hinder their participation and their willingness to contribute. Sorry, ladies.
Yeah. When I read this question, I was thinking about myself when, I don't know if it happens to you too, but whenever I'm asked to deliver a webinar or something like that, I plan what I'm going to say. And I even rehearse a little bit.
Me too. I cheat sheet, and yeah, I do the same.
It helps a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, why can't we provide that to our students, right? So, okay, great. Shall we go to the next question? Do we have more questions here?
Yeah, there's a question here from Ju. She asks, how about giving them a chance to prepare at home beforehand using voice recorder or vocaroo.com? That's
great. Yes, I do that sometimes. Yeah, you can do that for homework, or you can flip the class and ask them to prepare in advance. Yeah.
I agree. I think that we should try again to have a balance, right, between the time that they need to prepare and also the spontaneity, right, that eventually they will have to develop. Then Alexandra asks, what do you do when they start speaking but they realize they've made a mistake and stop talking? Okay, so they have to stop talking because they make a mistake. Did you hear that?
Yeah. Can you repeat the question?
Absolutely. Alexandra asks, what to do when students start speaking but realize they've made a mistake and stop talking?
I would wait a few seconds. I don't know, maybe they want to self-correct. So I think it depends on I think we have to feel from that student. Do they want to be corrected? Do they want our help? So it's important to see what, how they feel, or try to guess, to understand from the situation.
Yeah, because if they have stopped speaking in order to correct themselves, as you said, self-correct, I mean, that's fine, right? If they have realized they made a mistake. Maybe the problem is if they're speaking and then they make a mistake and they just stop talking, and then because they feel like ashamed or something like that, then I think it's really a question of helping them understand that everybody makes mistakes. It's part of the process and it's inevitable.
Yeah. Yes. Should we go to the other question?
We have a question here about the use of L1 in the classroom.
Yes.
So what do you think about L1? Should it be used or be forbidden at all?
What do you think, everyone? Should we forbid L1?
Yeah. Yeah, let's see what people, give them like a few seconds, see what they have to say about it.
Tell us what you think.
Batista says no.
Yeah.
Anna also says no. Okay, I don't think so. Victoria says.
When do you think it's useful? It's effective to use L1 in the classroom when when they are practicing speaking, Sergio?
I think for a number of reasons. Maybe they need to use L1, and especially low-level learners, right? They want to ask a question, for example, and they don't know how to ask the question in English. So using L1 is okay. I mean, from a student's perspective, and from a teacher's perspective, I think that you can also use L1 at first to build rapport. It can help.
Yes.
And maybe if you're spending a lot, if you notice that, okay, I understand the importance of giving students comprehensible input, and the more the merrier, sure. But sometimes I have and you have probably seen that too. You have observed lessons. We observe lessons that teachers spend a long time trying to explain something related to grammar, like a grammar point, and spend a lot of time trying to do that in English. And when they are done, the student translates the explanation. Oh, yeah. So I think that it is a way, if we notice that students can't understand something, especially more abstract points, I think using L1 just to save time is absolutely fine.
Yeah, me too. When it's when you want to can you hear me, Sergio?
Yes.
When you want to explain something difficult, for example, in my case, I teach a group of Turkish students. I don't speak Turkish, but even they are B2. They are B2 students, so they are a high level. But still, sometimes it's I want to say something. I want to explain something which is it is too abstract to say in English, and I ask them to say that in Turkish. I ask, and if they know, do you know this the name of this in Turkish? And they say, and they so I think that's another situation where I wish I could speak Turkish, because I think it's really helpful for me, for the students, but yeah, shamefully I don't. But I think teacher speaks students L1, you have this advantage.
For sure. And another thing, to clarify language, I think we can also use L1 instead of spending a lot of time trying to explain a very, very intricate concept in English, and it takes you like 3 or 4 minutes to do that. You could do that in 10 seconds if you were able to translate the word and
Yeah.
make it easier and simpler.
Yeah. And to
I'm not-
compare, well, I think in some structures, not all of them, but when we can compare the languages, some aspects of the language, why not?
Sure. Yeah, similarities and differences, right, between L1 and L2.
I do that sometimes with, I was teaching comparison the other day, the as structure. I used Portuguese to explain some of them, and I asked my students to say some sentences in Portuguese to really check if she understood, and it was great. So yeah, I think it is. It can be really helpful, the use of L1.
Yeah. And even more memorable if you're able to show them, okay, that's how we say it in Portuguese, but in English, you would express this idea like that. Or we have this particular grammatical structure in English, but in Portuguese, you don't have something that corresponds to that. I think it can make the process very memorable because then they see that the differences and similarities, as you said.
Absolutely. Baptiste is saying, once I had my class observed by a native speaker, and the only correction he made was that I'd spent too much time trying to explain something I could have done in L1. Yeah, you see?
Sure, it can really help us save time, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Cecilia, I think that it happens. All this fear of using L1 in the classroom. It's something that comes from the grammar translation method. So people misunderstand the idea. They think that if they translate, like regardless of the purpose and why they are using L1, it's something to do with the grammar translation method. Because they're like resorting to translation, so it makes you like a grammar translation teacher, and that's not the case at all, right? It's a complete different purpose.
Yeah, I agree.
Claudia says depends on their level, needs, style, and teacher's purpose. Sure, Claudia, definitely.
Always saying, I believe that beginners need L1. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, no reason to ban L1 from the classroom, right?
No reason. Let me see the other question.
There's one from Camila here. Camila asks, what about the students who love to talk and don't worry about the mistakes? How should we face that?
Again, I think it depends on the purpose of the lesson, depends on the purpose of the activity, the task. Are you aiming for accuracy, fluency, a bit of both? What's the purpose of that activity, and what kind of activity is that, right? But still, I think regardless of the activity, I think it's important to give them feedback, whether they make mistakes or not, right? Because giving feedback is not just about correcting students, right? We can give feedback in order to praise students, in order to highlight good use of certain language chunks, not just for criticizing students.
Yeah, we tend to think about giving feedback only in terms of correction, right? But it's I think it's very important that you highlight that the importance of telling students not only the bad things, like their mistakes, but also the things they've done well, so that they can kind of emulate it next time they have a similar task. And the same thing applies to writing, right? When we're giving feedback on writing, we tend just to focus on mistakes and we forget to focus on the good things they did, so they know and then they can reproduce it next time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's have a look at the next question.
Yes.
Sergio. Okay, large groups. Wasn't from Andrea. Online speaking, large groups. Does it work as effectively as face-to-face?
Yeah, I think that one problem that she may have when teaching large groups online is the fact that it's not so easy to monitor them. Because I assume that she's going to have speaking activities and she's going to put them in the breakout rooms. She's going to go from breakout room to monitor the students. But maybe this is one advantage we have when we're teaching face-to-face, right? Because if you're teaching like a group of 12 students, let's say, and you are monitoring a pair, but you're also listening to the other pair because they're all speaking at the same time. So, which is an advantage. But when doing it online, maybe it can be, it can be more challenging because then like two of them are going to be in one breakout room, the other two in another breakout room. She's going to be going from breakout room to breakout room. So again, inevitably, she's going to miss something. It's going to be hard for her to monitor. And we're talking before about giving students a specific purpose, right? When they're doing a speaking activity. Would you like to talk more about that, Cecilia?
So what I do with my students, they are not, it's not a very large group. They are 16. But still, it is a group. What I do with them is, and I've noticed that they really like that, is putting them in breakout rooms, and I assign different roles for each student. So all of them have to engage and participate. They are not just listening and sleeping. So. Also assign one role as a, let's say, language detective, is the student who's going to observe and take notes and not give feedback, but report back to the whole class when we are back to the whole class what the group discussed. So I think this is, it's not a perfect way, but it's a way of making them engaged, giving them some responsibility. They have to do something. They have, as you said, they have a purpose for speaking, and I think it can work fine with large groups.
Yeah. I do something similar. I use the same strategy even with my CP level groups. When one of them is playing the examiner and the other one is playing the candidate, to give them a clear purpose, I say, so if you're playing the examiner, when you listen, while you listen to your partner, you're going to be taking notes of good examples of language. Because otherwise, what may happen is that, okay, they're listening to their partner, but if it's, let's say, purposeless, right? They may turn off because there's nothing for them to pay attention to. So
be more specific to what you want them to observe. Yeah.
So a clear purpose.
Sorry. Yeah. We're saying.
Yeah. No. Yes. I was saying that's the importance of whenever you have two people interacting with each other, they have to have very clear purposes. Otherwise, they may get distracted and it's not going to work as expected. Yeah.
Sometimes I ask my students, look, you're going to be the grammar detective. So I want you to observe how the group uses connectors, for example. Okay, I want you to take notes of the connector that they used. Okay, so they take notes, and then we can discuss in class when we are back to the whole group. The sentences and whether they were, the appropriate one or inappropriate. So give them a specific role and be as specific as you can.
Yeah, certainly. There is a question here, Cecilia.
Yeah. What is the platform? Is it? What if the platform? who uses doesn't have breakout rooms. I teach a group of 7. Yeah, yeah. That's I know that some teachers cannot use Zoom in some countries, right? You can also assign. For example, I know that some teachers use Google. What is it? Google Meet. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Google Meet.
There's Google Meet. Yeah.
So I think you can also assign different, use different links with different groups and let them do the activity, and then you have a main link where when you come back. So you can do that with I think Google Meet. You can do that with Whereby. Yeah, Whereby.
Yeah, yeah. Danny says Google Meet. Yeah.
Meet, yeah. So you have a link, right? When Google Meet, you get a link.
I think so. Yeah.
You will end up with different links for different groups. Let them, set some time. Let's say 5 minutes. When time's up, they have to go back to the main meeting room on Google Meet. So that's one way of doing it.
Yeah. The problem is if the school doesn't have it at all, right? Then you have to convince your school to get one.
Yeah. Or ask them to do, or ask the students to do the tasks asynchronously via WhatsApp, with whatever tool they have.
Danny says here that depending on the version, it doesn't provide you with split rooms. Yeah, that can be a problem. I think that if your school doesn't provide you with a nice platform, maybe you should try and convince them to get you. Because, I mean, the description here says, right, if one speaks, the rest of them gets bored. Yeah, they're going to get bored, of course. If just one person is speaking and the others are not doing anything.
Yeah.
And it's a problem that can be easily solved. I mean, it's just a question of changing the platform. I don't know how willing they are to get a different platform, but it can be easily solved as long as you have something that allows you to place students in different breakout rooms.
Yeah. Okay, shall we go to the next question?
Yes.
Okay. I think there are similar questions here. Approaches on how to correct pronunciation and techniques or strategies to make corrections, especially with fossilized errors. I think they kind of have, right, Sergio?
Yeah, they're similar, right? Well, I think that regardless of the correction technique you use, on the spot correction or delayed correction, I believe it's important to give students the opportunity to try again. Because most of the time we correct students, okay, they seem to understand what the mistake they've made, but I think it's not just a question of choosing. I see teachers talking a lot about the kind of correction technique they're going to use. So the what. But maybe the problem, okay, there are 2 other things to consider in my opinion, is when you're going to correct, are you going to wait or are you going to correct on the spot? So this is a decision you're going to have to make. And secondly is, if you choose to correct, I would say that maybe on the spot can be more effective depending on the kind of mistake, especially when talking about pronunciation, right? Because then it's more memorable. I've just made a mistake, so okay, there is a problem with it. I get feedback immediately.
I tend to use on the spot correction as well.
Me too. And then the only thing else I'd like to add is, okay, so having correct the student, I would give the student the opportunity to try it again. So opportunities for what we call retrial. Correction on the spot plus retrial. So then they can not only understand the mistake they've made, but try it and see if they can get it right the next time.
And become more aware, right? I think it's important to make the students aware of the mistake, let's say.
Yes. Yeah. And don't you think that the whole correction process becomes more becomes more meaningful if they can, okay, I've made that mistake, but now I got it right.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's not a kind of abstract, okay, oh, the student says, let's take a minimal pair, for example, says leave instead of live, and then you just correct it. But okay, no, now try it yourself.
And yeah, yes. We can, I've also talked about task repetition. I think task repetition in this case works well, right? Changing changing one aspect of the task and ask the students to repeat the task. For example, let's say if you're proposing I don't know, a role play, right? And they make whatever mistake they make regarding pronunciation or I don't know, yeah, usually pronunciation, maybe something related to connected speech. And maybe when you ask them to repeat the task, you can change the characters, or you can ask them to change their intonation. Now the characters are, angry. How would you perform this dialogue? Having the characters angry. So, and then you give them the chance to do it again and see, like you said, if they get it right this time. With and maybe okay, they will get it, but then they make the mistake. Yeah, it's not meaningful for them. Perhaps just correcting on the spot without giving them this chance. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it's incredibly useful, the chance, as you said, to repeat the task, because well, research shows, right, that when they do the task for the second time, their attention is not just so much deployed on the language, because they know the language they're going to use, and then they can focus more on, or vice versa, right? Their attention was too focused on the task. Now that they know what they're going to do, they can focus more on the language and produce more language. So it's really, really useful. And I love the idea. I love the idea you mentioned when you repeat the task but with a twist. Exactly.
Yeah. This is something I read from Scott Thumbury. He has delivered a webinar on task repetition. It's amazing. Have you seen it?
Not yet.
Yeah, it's really great. So I highly recommend this webinar. He talks about this task repetition in order to develop students' fluency, especially fluency, but it helps their pronunciation as well.
Yeah, and don't you think that the second time they're even more ambitious language-wise? Because then, as we discussed, right, they know what to do, so now they're going to make less cognitive effort to process the task and the language, and they can focus more on the use of language.
Yeah, and I think it's a great way to make them feel proud of themselves, right? Because they're gonna try it again, and they might get it. So it's
sense of achievement. Yeah.
This exactly, this sense of achievement is we give them this opportunity. Yeah.
Cecilia, have you repeated or given the same webinar more than once?
I have. Yeah. Yes.
The second time is much better than the first, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yes. Yeah. Have you done the same?
It's the same. Yes.
It's much better. Yeah. So repetition is the key.
Yes.
Yeah. Can we go to the next one, Sergio? I think we're going to. I'm just looking at the time. We just have an hour. We just have an hour. Only an hour. So.
How many minutes do we have left? 10 minutes only?
I don't know. How much time? About 10 minutes. Yes. Yes.
10 minutes. Okay. Wow. Time flies.
Yeah. Another. Do you have another question, everyone? Just checking here.
See, there's one more question here from Fair. She is asking how to work on speaking with beginners without using role plays.
Yeah, yeah. I think we need, they need a lot of scaffolding, a lot. As we've mentioned before, give them time to brainstorm, to prepare, to rehearse, pre-teach vocabulary. I'm for pre-teaching vocabulary in this case for beginners. So give them as much input as they need. You know, using some, if you speak the students L1, you can, I would give the instructions in L1. Lots of visuals, using a lot of visuals. What else?
Yeah, I would also suggest what we call guessing games.
Yeah, yeah, the types of activities, yeah. Let's talk about that.
Because there's a guessing games. I think that there are lots of advantages to this kind of exercise. Let me give you an example of what a guessing game is. If I write, let's say that I write on the board 4 or 5 different years, and then you have to ask me questions in order to find out why those years were important to me. So the kind of structure you're going to be using to ask questions is basically were you or did you, and what I find interesting about this kind of exercise is that you're going to keep repeating the same structure. So in this case, were you or did you, but always with a different purpose.
Yeah.
To find new information about whoever it is, right? The teacher or another student. So there is a clear, I would say that the reason for that is basically threefold. There is a communicative purpose, number one. You're going to be using formulaic language because you are repeating the same chunk. You're focused on chunks, not just isolated words. And, and lastly, I would say it's that there is a repetition, but meaningful repetition, which helps with memory, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think another activity great for beginners is any kind of information gap activity, and we can adapt them. You know, for beginners, you can use just images and spot the differences. You know, pictures of a house. How is this house different from one picture to the other? And they have to say, oh, there is, I don't know, there is a fridge. And then they have to ask, for example, the same as you said, is there a fridge in the house? No, there is something. So they have to find some kind of some kind of gaps from each other.
Oh yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And you have pretty much the same principle, right? There's a communicative purpose, it's formulaic, and you have meaningful repetition.
Yeah, yeah. And they're speaking, right? They're speaking. And I think another aspect we need to consider is for any kind of students, but especially for beginners, perhaps, is we need to set realistic goals, realistic objectives. Okay? If they are beginners, they cannot be too ambitious when they're speaking. They just patient, and we need to tell them, to our students, we should not expect them to speak, to talk about, I don't know, the earthquake that happened in Europe and how they feel. You know what I mean? So
definitely,
so
the
we need
impact is going to have.
Yeah, we need to set realistic goals. Little by little, baby steps, and build their confidence and their language awareness. You mentioned something about a teacher, right?
Yeah, I think if we're not careful, we can make students frustrated. Because depending on the task we set, if they're not able to accomplish, they may feel that that they're not good enough, And at the end of the day, when you look at the problem, why it happened, it's because of the way the task was designed. Yes, I was telling you before the live, right, about a lesson I observed, and the teacher asked, it was a group of elementary level learners. She asked the students to talk together, imagine that they were moving house, and they had to choose a number of items to take from the place where they were living to the new apartment, something like that. And she expected them to choose exactly, to choose some furniture, and also to justify their choices by saying, for example, why one is better than the other. There was just a bit of a problem. They hadn't learned yet language for comparison.
How can they? Yeah.
Exactly.
Press.
So the whole thing happened in Portuguese because they couldn't carry out the task in English.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, when we set realistic goals to our students, we solve half of the problem, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And Cecilia, don't you think that it's also important to consider, I mean, in addition to setting realistic goals, to think about when you give students a particular task, to think about the language that they need in order to perform that task? Because some teachers may overlook that. And they set the bar too high, which can lead to frustration.
Definitely, yeah. We need to not only the language, it includes the language, vocabulary, the grammar, structures that they need. Yeah, mm-hmm. they know them already? Do you need to pre-teach something? So, and again, I think we go back to the beginning of our conversation. Students need to feel safe.
Mm-hmm. It has to be a safe environment.
So, the speaking activity, we should not challenge them too much. And this concerns the language that they need to use as well, right?
Yeah. And it's funny because when we're helping students to prepare for a writing task, we always consider the kind of language they're going to use and functions and everything. But we may overlook that when it comes to a speaking task. And just give them the task without taking that into consideration.
Absolutely. Yeah. If they have to compare something or explain their point of view. So what kind of language do they need? They need, for example, transition words, connectors, and so we need to take this into account. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Do you have time for one more, or have run out of time?
Time. I'm just afraid of getting cut off.
Yeah, we have only 3 minutes left, I think.
Yeah, I think we'd better. Do you have any more questions, guys? I don't think so.
Yeah, no more questions.
No questions. Okay, that was great, Sergio. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the invitation. Should we share with them the good news now?
Oh, yes, we have time. We have time. You can share. We have some good news, guys.
So Cecilia, we have wonderful news. Cecilia and I are planning a course together on teaching online. Right, Cecilia? At the beginning of January.
January, yes. It's we will share the date, the start date very soon. But yeah, we're teaming up, and it's going to be great. Right, Sergio?
Yes, it's going to be wonderful. Thank you, Carla. Carla says thank you. Thanks, Alexandra. Thanks, everyone. It was great.
For joining us.
Yes, Cecilia, thanks again for the invitation. Loved it.
Loved it too. And stay tuned, everyone, for the upcoming news and with more details about the course. But yeah, get ready for 2021, because this year a nightmare. Let's get
Fingers crossed, next year is going to be a better one.
much better. Yeah. Thank you, Sergio. I hope you have a nice day
You too,
there.
Cecilia. Thanks, everyone.
Bye bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.